the smartest man alive, Reed Richards of the Fantastic Four.
Hey! We're recording the podcast! Shut up!
Good morning to you, wherever you are, because it is...
Morning somewhere!
For September 10th, 2024. My name is Bernie Burns, T-minus 30. It's Ashley over there. Hey, Ashley, how you doing?
Hey, not bad. We're starting a podcast right as Polaris Dawn is taking off into the sky.
Let's
you know,
see
Bernie, some people
if I can turn this
go
up
and
and hear
launch
it.
themselves into space to the radiation belts of space. Some of us podcast.
All right, we're watching it take off right now, literally. We decided to start the podcast a little bit late so that we can see this. How come I can't pick up the Bluetooth through here?
No idea.
Oh, just can't. Do you have it turned up? Let's see. Maybe be able to hear it. Oh, well, that came in loud. Okay.
T plus 35 seconds into the Polaris Dawn mission. Flying crew on board Dragon and Falcon 9 to new heights.
All right, so they have successfully taken off, cleared the tower. They're 20 seconds into their flight. Polaris Dawn takes off today. Launched by SpaceX. They're going to be conducting some long-range, at least for the astronauts that we have currently, long-range flight experiment, including passing through the Van Allen belts.
And this is, if I recall correctly, going to be the first time they do a spacewalk in the SpaceX suits.
So it'll be the first commercial spacewalk ever done. Although, at what point? I guess we just have to keep calling out that it's a commercial spacewalk. Let's see. There's the flight crew sitting in the capsule.
Looking cool as cucumbers.
Power.
One Bravo.
And we heard the call out 1 Bravo.
Copy, 1 Bravo.
That just tells the crew what would happen should they need to initiate anything. But right now, everybody makes...
Thanks for that detail, buddy.
Thanks. Okay.
You know, I got to say, the SpaceX broadcasts are always really interesting as compared to what I historically kind of associate with being the NASA ones, because there's people cheering, you know, and yelling and stuff like that. You really get a sense of the team effort. You know, with NASA, there's some applause typically, but it seems a lot more raucous whenever it's SpaceX.
I guess a little bit. Although I do remember, do you remember the Mars Curiosity landing? Mm-hmm. When that rover landed?
True.
And it felt like everyone in the world was watching that NASA stream.
That was a pretty cool zeitgeist, you know, for space travel in the last, 30 years, you know? It seems like there's an ebb and flow to it. I feel like we're in a little bit of a flow at the moment. People are feeling good about it.
Well, there's certainly a lot going on. Boeing's not feeling good about it, but everyone else is feeling pretty good about it.
I read recently, too, that there was a work stoppage that was being threatened by, I suppose, one of the unions that works with Boeing, and they just threw like 25% pay hikes for everyone. Just like, we don't need, it sounded like to me, we don't need anything else. Just here.
Right. Just please don't stop working.
25%.
We just can't handle this right now.
That's somebody who's like, hey, we got a good opportunity here to make something happen. All right, everything's looking pretty good so far. We are now 2 minutes and 49 seconds into the launch, so looking pretty good.
And we'll put a link to this live stream as well in the link dump if you want to watch it back, because it is just kind of, I love seeing these things take off. I've been on a sci-fi kick lately. I'm putting it down to the book series I'm reading, which is the Red Rising series. Normally, I'm very into like the fantasy side of things, but every now and again, I'll go on this sci-fi kick. And right now, I feel like I'm on one. We got all this stuff going on in space. I've got my books. I very nearly, Bernie, started another run-through of Mass Effect yesterday.
No, what do you mean very nearly? I watched you doing it.
Well, I made the character.
Okay.
I landed on Eden Prime, so that's as far as I've gotten.
If
Literally, I started the first level and then was like, oh, I have some work to do.
If you can make it past the Mako stuff on Noveria.
Noveria,
Yes.
that's the... If I fall off a Mass Effect playthrough, that's where I fall off.
I'm curious.
For some reason, you can choose 2 planets to go to. For some reason, even knowing it's my fall-off point, I always go to Noveria first, and I always fall off at the Mako section. Or when you're like running around doing busy work in that big like atrium concrete building. And if I can get through that, if I can get to the base and start dealing with the Spider Queen stuff or whatever, then I start to get interested, right? And even knowing that that's coming, I still have been falling off.
And if you don't make it through that part,
I'll be leaving now.
That's where I fell off a few times. I'm curious how many people who picked up Mass Effect at Mass Effect 2, I'm talking about the franchise here, they picked up the Mass Effect franchise in the second iteration. How many people went back and played the first one?
Well, I actually didn't pick it up until 3 was almost coming out. So 1
Really?
and 2 were already out when I finally got to
And
playing
you had
it,
to go back to chapter 1.
but I did start with the first game.
Did you find, having played them all in such close proximation to each other in rapid succession, did you find that the choices weren't as relevant when you got to the end?
So I had a different take on it than I guess a lot of the internet did at the time. A lot of people I remember were upset. They're like, "Oh, you picked the red ending or the green ending or the blue ending," and that's really all there is to it.
Right.
But for me, what I saw is the ending was there's an entire section at the end where you're going along and you sort of meet and speak with a lot of your companions. So for me, that was where the ending really started, because that's your last chance to have conversations with those who made it all this way.
Right.
That's where those who died are missing. So you're really seeing, for me, that was where you see like the real consequence of a lot of your personal choices. And then in the end, it was just yet another choice that Commander Shepard has to make.
The interesting thing to me is that we talk about Noveria. To me, it's the first time you're playing the franchise, it's one of the big choices that you make. You either do X or you do Y, and they're very dramatic. With the Arachnid Queen, where you essentially commit genocide or let her and her brood go, which you don't know what's going to happen with that. And I feel like there was a nod to that at the end of Mass Effect 3, but that's about it. Like, there wasn't really any major consequence for that.
Yeah, there are some consequences throughout the game, definitely had more weight than others.
Yeah.
But that's like
It's mostly
anything, right?
what characters were alive, like you said, and that's it. Like, who you get to say goodbye to at the end, basically.
Yeah, so for me, that was the big momentous thing. I know that they did make some changes to the ending with some DLC. I'm not actually sure I ever played that.
Well, while we're talking about sci-fi, we lost a beloved sci-fi icon this week. James Earl Jones passed away, which is, he would be most famously known, I think, as the voice of Darth Vader.
Yes, and that's actually he's going to be one of the first really interesting cases of an AI voice outliving the person.
Yeah.
Because if I recall correctly, didn't he signed away his voice rights to Disney and said, "Go ahead, use my voice for Disney. I'm retiring from the role, but you can keep using the voice for the character of Darth Vader." So now that he's passed away, which is a tragedy because he was an absolute icon, we will still hear his voice, and that's got to be one of the first people where this is going to be the case, right? Where
There was rumors that
sign away.
Bruce Willis did it as well, but those were just rumors.
I see.
And then it came out later that he was suffering from dementia and was retiring from acting. But there were always these rumors that Bruce Willis had signed away his likeness to be used for AI, etc. Which, if I was a famous actor and I had a iconic voice role like Darth Vader, I'm assuming that he made a deal with Disney that was like, you're also going to pay in perpetuity to my heirs. To
Right,
my
like to the estate.
Right. And so that would be a deal that would make sense. I know there's a lot of moral gray area. How's the launch doing? You're taking your laptop back. Are they looking good still?
Yep. They're firing things, so it seems like it's going well so far. I'm just taking the laptop so that I can look things up if I need to. But we're now 8 minutes in. That's a good sign.
Have they been bombarded by cosmic rays yet?
Oh, look, it's the Fantastic Four.
It's Jonathan Storm, lead pilot. But if I was if I was in that position and I had a position to carry that on through, it's like if they make the choice and they allow that, then, what's to say? I think it's okay to talk about this now. There is a digital character that is in an otherwise very practical heavy movie, Alien Romulus. And I honestly don't understand why they made the choice to have a now deceased actor brought back into a role digitally, because it creates this really huge uncanny valley when, without spoiling too much, it would have been very easy to make this character practical. That's all I can say. It would have been diegetically within the story, having this be, even if it was a shitty version, a practical version of this character, everything in the story about the state of this character would have been fine with it being weird and gross and practical. That's all I can say without being spoilerish. Really weird choice to me. It's one of two really weird choices in that movie. But yeah, if they're going to sign away their likeness, why not let them do it? You know what I mean? I don't know if the actor from Alien allowed that to happen or if their estate were the people that allowed it to happen. But yeah, if it's the person's choice, what can they do? If anything, You could make the argument, did James Earl Jones take away the work of someone who would be playing Darth Vader in the future? That's a totally different question, though.
I mean, I guess that's true. Then again, that role has always been associated with that voice.
With that voice, yes. David Prowse, who played the physical person inside the suit, apparently didn't know they were going to replace his voice as Darth Vader until he showed up at the premiere. Did you know that?
I did not know that.
Yeah, he didn't know.
That's rough.
You can actually go, though, watch like footage of Star Wars, like not deleted footage, but just unused footage, where it's actually David Prowse acting as Darth Vader, and you can understand why they changed the voice. One of the most iconic, effective changes I've ever seen made in a movie in post-production.
There was, you always tell me about the frump that he does, like the little like hip frump he does when he first sees Princess Leia, and I can't unsee it. And so you're a jerk.
Well, it's also that's Matt Holmes' issue. He pointed that out to me. But he's very British, which feels weird when you see Darth Vader doing, but it actually fits really well with the rest of the other Empire actors because they're all proper Brits, right?
There's, speaking of like Star Wars and using likenesses and things, there's actually there's a trial, or there's something about to go to trial right now, and that is Star Wars using Peter Cushing's likeness for Rogue One. Have you heard about this?
Yes, I have. I mean, I'm well aware that they did it. A lot of people didn't like when Grand Moff Tarkin showed up in Rogue One. They thought it was really off-putting, and they could tell he was fake the whole time. That's actually one of the best versions of that I've ever seen. But what, they didn't have permission to use Peter Cushing's likeness?
So let's see. Let me see if I can bring up a summary on this.
Do you want me to pause? Or are you good?
No. I've got the article here. So this is from The Standard. We'll put this in the link dump. But they began legal action against Lunik Heavy Industries and Lucasfilm, which produced the original Star Wars films, in 2019, claiming they received unjust enrichment from Cushing's image in Rogue One without permission. So Lucasfilm and Lunik Heavy Industries opposed the claim, with the court previously told they did not believe permission to recreate Cushing's image was required under the terms of his contract for A New Hope.
So they were saying they could use Cushing's image because he was in A New Hope and signed an agreement.
Or that there was maybe something in his New Hope contract saying that they could continue to use his likeness, whatever.
When you sign these media agreements
across all future possible medias, in perpetuity,
whether or not yet invented.
Yes.
And then you can't even imagine what that's for at the time. But then here we're in 2024, we can digitally recreate you and resurrect you essentially. And they did that.
Yes. So basically, Bernie, they're saying they got him on the Disney Plus terms of use.
It does say here, this is, they got him. It says that Disney later entered into an agreement with the executors of Cushing's estate, which saw permission to use his image granted in return for a fee. Basically, they said, we can use this, but let's work out a deal. Let's pay. That's what it sounds like. So they got paid, Cushing's estate. But it sounds to me like Cushing, before he died, signed an agreement with another production company, the one that's suing, where he gave them license to use his image.
Yeah, so film company Tyburn Film Productions is taking legal action over their use of Mr. Cushing's image. So they believe that they own the rights to his image.
And this other company that's mentioned here, Lunik Heavy Industries, it says this is owned by Disney and produced the film Rogue One, a Star Wars story. Okay, so a lot of times when a big studio is making a movie, they will create an entire separate new production company. And then it's like a bucket, essentially, where you can put all the expenditures in and all the payments have to come out of it. It's a really clean way to do it. So that's who I assume who Lunik Heavy Industries is in this case. So they're getting sued. So this is like the James Earl Jones thing, except James Earl Jones granted his license, or licensed his image, I should say, and voice to Disney. So who else is going to sue them? There's no other little separate production company.
Right, theoretically, unless someone else maybe tries to use James Earl Jones' voice later and Disney goes, no, he's ours now.
What else could he be in? What do you have a favorite James Earl Jones?
Was it Field of Dreams?
Yeah, that's a great one. That's a fucking great one. He wasn't the voice in that, though. There's a voice that speaks to Kevin Costner. He's an author who then is part of it. Field of Dreams is either one of those movies that you absolutely love or hate. You're either a person who likes baseball movies or you don't like baseball movies. Would you like to guess which one I am?
I like Major League.
Oh my God. You ever see Bull Durham?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
Probably. Wait, hold on. Was Kevin Costner in that?
Kevin Costner, Susan Sarandon.
Okay, then I'll have to say yes. I
Tim
can't say I
Robbins.
remember anything about it, but I will have seen it because, as we've discussed before, my mom is one of the biggest Kevin Costner fans out there. And so I would absolutely have seen that, whether I wanted to or not.
It had a great like late 80s, early 90s character actor who was in so much stuff and he like, kind of chewed up the screen. His name is Robert Wuhl. Does that name even ring a bell to you? You'd probably know this guy if you saw him.
It might be one of those guys where I'm like, oh, the guy.
Yeah,
that guy.
He almost played like the gum chewing like, yeah guy. I don't know how to describe it. And I loved every movie that he was in, including he's in Bull Durham as well. He plays one of the assistant coaches, I think. Anyway, so I don't think they're going to go back and make a Field of Dreams 2 featuring James Earl Jones' voice. But RIP to an absolute legend. The voice role and performance of Darth Vader is, in a word, iconic.
Yeah,
I mean, it's just incredible.
It cannot be duplicated.
Cannot be duplicated. It really can't. They really got magic with that character design, the performance of David Prowse, and then the voice performance of James Earl Jones. What an absolute mix. So both the actors who have played the original Darth Vader have now sadly passed away to such an iconic character that they all worked together to create. Just an amazing thing. So RIP to James Earl Jones.
Well, speaking of potentially lucrative court battles, Bernie, Apple, there's a ruling coming out just this morning that Apple has been ordered by the EU to pay 13 billion euros in back taxes.
It's a lot of money.
The European Commission is that's a lot of money. The European Commission was saying that all these tax breaks that Apple got from basing themselves in Ireland for several decades were illegal, and they're now required to pay 13 billion euro in back taxes. Wow. That's a lot of money.
From Mac Rumors, I have this site up because we're going to be talking a little bit about Apple's announcement. By the way,
you thought that's where I was going with that? No.
Way to ruin their big day, Ireland, with the $13 billion bill. Apple's last reporting of cash holdings was $190 billion.
Okay, so out of that, $13 billion is still a lot of money for plebs like us.
God.
But that comes out to what, like...
It's still a chunk.
Like,
I mean,
5-ish% just of the cash holdings they have on hand. Not even, their assets and all that. If that's just, they just like have to like go and dig under the mattress to get their 13 billion out. That's insane.
Although it's euros versus dollars. So add another, 10%-ish on there as well to convert it over to dollars.
Depends on the day. Depends on when they pay the bill.
You know what's crazy is looking this up. When you look up Apple and cash, another thing that keeps showing up is Warren Buffett through Berkshire Hathaway has always been famously one of the big shareholders for Apple, has been with them for a long time. He favors them and for historically Bank of America as well. But Warren Buffett has been in a strategy where he's just been like cutting all of his exposure, not all of it, significantly reducing his exposure to the stock market and equities. And they're up to now, Berkshire Hathaway, we talked about Apple having $190 billion in cash. Berkshire Hathaway, this is from a Reuters article on August 3rd, halves their Apple stake. They got rid of half their Apple.
Woo!
Boost cash to $277 billion.
That's not even a real number.
That's insane, isn't it, man?
That's
insane.
not real.
Well, it just shows more than anything else, pulling the money out of the market to do what with them? The market's been so volatile. Last week was a brutal week in the stock market, and then it just like all of a sudden rebounds because everyone's optimistic
and
about
why? And they go, I don't know, we had a good day.
Soft
I'm
landing.
feeling good.
They go, it's just sentiment about other people's sentiment, right? It's like, how do other people feel about the market, and then people making big bets on that. And once again, Ashley, this week we might be able to avoid a recession because we've been talking about this for like 5 years straight at this point.
Could be a recession.
Are we going to avoid it?
There could be a recession, but maybe we'll avoid it.
So while you were recouping in bed yesterday, did you watch the Apple event at all? Or were you just
did
snoozing?
not, but I was mostly snoozing.
I don't think you missed a whole hell of a lot.
It doesn't sound like I did. So they announced the iPhone 16. It's newer. It has some additional like AI
summary.
AI chips or something. It's new.
It's plus one.
But really, that sounds like, aside from they're running a A18 chipset that's better for AI processing, it doesn't sound like too much else is new with the phone. They did announce that the AirPods Pro 2 are going to be able to be used as like hearing aids, which is an interesting and kind of cool feature, I guess.
It was really cool, actually, though, but a lot of that hasn't been yet approved. I don't know if they have to go through some kind of medical licensing or something, but they actually showed how you can get your AirPods. It'll run you through a hearing test, and then it'll modify the AirPods to be a customized hearing device for you. And one of the examples they showed in their presentation was an older person listening to a toast for her, and then she could tune into the person across the room who is making the toast to her.
Okay, so here's how this is going to work.
A situation we can all relate to.
Hey, right.
Being toasted.
Oh, I'm being toasted. Allow me to turn on my hearing. But here's how this is going to work for me. Hey, Siri, what's that couple over at that other table saying?
Yeah, I know.
Just put in your AirPods and be like, what are they talking about? That looks like an interesting fight. Hey, Siri, let's listen in.
Which sounds horrifying, but the rationale, if you
Oh, no.
apply the rationale of the internet, guess what? It's in public, so it's fair game, right?
Right.
At some point, we're going to have to modify when we have devices that can like listen in or tune out, or I can point my camera at someone and it'll read their lips for me. You know, at some point, we're going to modify what does in public mean.
Well, like in
right?
public and in perpetuity don't feel like they should necessarily be the same thing.
You know, what are the cool parts about Borderlands? There's not much. There wasn't much in the movie. I really like the way they did the holographic masks when they were walking around in those. I thought those were like
Those
a really
were pretty cool.
I thought that was a cool design.
I did like those. You think we'll get those maybe?
Yeah, it actually, the later use of it when they were in disguise and they were wearing the mask was better than when they had the communication thing. Remember early in the movie, a guy was communicating with someone else by like they were wearing his face.
Like wearing his face, yeah.
I like the later one better, but pretty soon I would go for that. I would wear like a holographic camouflage mask if I have to hide from these devices and everything else. Of course, it'll probably be illegal because then you'd hide from CCTV and everything else. Overall, the worst tangent ever, by the way. Overall, the event was okay. I do think there's big years followed by smaller years of refinement typically in Apple devices, and this felt like a smaller refinement year. There was a really cool addition to the watch line where they have a satin black watch, which I think looks really amazing. It's just those watches are so damn expensive. That is not a reason to upgrade the watch to get a slightly different color one.
Well,
I know that for some
other-
people it will be, but not for me.
The other feature they're adding to the watch is a sleep apnea detection,
Correct.
theoretically, right?
Yeah.
So that is interesting, but as I don't think either of us really have sleep apnea or are at risk of sleep apnea, so I wouldn't shell out for the watch just for that.
You don't
but
know,
hey,
though.
satin black, that's
don't know.
worth a couple $100 investment.
The watch also is adding the watch is becoming, I think, a really amazing health device. And there's been rumors circulating that they have a way to read blood glucose level via the watch, and that there were rumors. We were talking about Lunic Heavy Industries by Lucasfilm, this production company they made. There were rumors that Apple had built shell companies within shell companies in order to develop the technology and file for the patents so that no one could discover that Apple was doing this. This is rumors that was out there. And the rumor was for the Apple Watch 10, the 10th iteration of the watch or the 10th anniversary, they were going to roll this out. And I was waiting to see if that was the case, and it wasn't the case. It was the rumors along the lines of when Disney built Disneyland, that in order to buy the land to do it, they had to do it so secretly so that people wouldn't pick up on the fact that they were putting together this huge parcel of land in the middle of Florida in order to build this park. Otherwise, the people with the land that had left would just, of course.
Jack up the prices.
Can you imagine some jackass still had a house in the middle of Disneyland?
Every now and again, I'll see like a little house just in the middle of like a huge development, and I go, "Yep, I see exactly what happened."
That's your holdout. Some people just get stubborn with that stuff in particular. I mean, you get it, but suddenly if somebody comes up to your farm and says, "We'll give you 2x what it's worth," you're like, "Oh, I'll take that."
Yeah, all right, fine.
But if you knew it was Disney, you'd be like, "How does 10x sound? How about that?" So yeah, the Apple event. I don't know that I will be purchasing any of those. A lot of it was bringing their full product line into the USB-C world. Now, none of the iPhone US models will have SIM trays, so they're all gone now in the US. Our UK EU models do have SIM trays, which actually caused a problem for me because I had an issue with my phone when I went back to the US, and they're like, I can't work on this. This doesn't even look like our phone, which was the first experience I've ever had like that. But
I had something similar where I ordered we were going back to the US. This was for my brother's wedding last year. And so I ordered one of the iPhone 15s to the US. However, my phone plan here in the UK did not offer eSIMs.
Right.
But because it was a US phone, I didn't have any option to even put a SIM in. There's like the panel is still there, but it was like covered over. Like, no, you don't get this. So I had to end up completely changing my phone plan in the UK because it was a US phone.
It's kind of the flip of what we were talking about with tap to pay here in Europe. Essentially, it's a big culture of you go to a different country and you just buy a SIM from like a corner shop, and then you have a SIM for that country while you're there. Whereas in the US, it's all eSIM, and then you just have your plan, and it goes all over the world. And in our case, you pay like $10 a day, and you can have a phone basically on any carrier anywhere in the world, it feels like. Have you ever run into somewhere where your phone plan didn't work?
No.
It even worked when we were in India, didn't it?
Yeah, but I mean, keep in mind, there's a limit to the number of places I've traveled. I'm sure there are places that it may not work, but I've not run into any of them.
Yeah, that's back when we did the Baba Sen documentary all those years ago. Hey, we should probably wrap up here because we're going a little bit long, but we should point out there is a major event taking place today besides the launching of the astronauts into the Van Allen belts. The presidential debate in the U.S. between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump is taking place tonight.
Oh, I see. I thought you were talking about the announcement of Firefest 2.
No, but this could be, who knows what could happen tonight. So it's going to be a really exciting night. Get ready for lots of hot takes. My current hot take is, boy, the Democrats love to fall into overconfidence really, really quickly. How quickly the Democrats forget how overconfidence hurts them. Everyone is talking about how Trump is running scared. Trump's going to be a disaster during the debate. I remember that exact same conversation before the last debate, before the entire Democratic campaign got turned on its fucking head by the most influential debate I've ever seen in my life. So these debates, at the very least, have a track record of being very interesting in this campaign. So I'm looking forward to seeing what happens tonight.
So it's definitely worth tuning in either way.
We will be tuning in tomorrow morning because I think it's going to be taking place at like 4 a.m. our time or something like
we'll
that.
Set an alarm. Can't miss this one.
All right. Anything else today, Ashley? Who should we thank for today's podcast?
Today, I'd like to thank Daniel L. and Joshua Nedich. Thank you both for sponsoring this episode of our show at patreon.com/morningsomewhere.
Thank you both very much. We appreciate that. And I also want to say a very special thank you to everyone who sent in ideas for our little cat Mush and his binge eating problem that he was having. We have invested in a timed meter, which puts out little parcels of food, an automatic feeder. And that has pretty much solved his problem. So thank you. A little update on Mush's weight issue.
It's not the weight. It's the vomit.
I know. I just didn't want to bring up the vomit in the early morning. His binge problem that he was having. So thank you very much to everyone who wrote in or left a comment telling us how we could help We Mush. All right. Well, that does it for us today, September 10th, 2024. Good luck to the astronauts up in space for Paragon Dawn. What's it called?
Polaris Dawn.
Polaris Dawn.
They're doing a Paragon run?
They're doing a Paragon run through the Van Allen belts right now.
I can't wait to see their Renegade run.
We look forward to your safe and on time as scheduled return to Earth. All right. We will be back to talk to you tomorrow. We hope you'll be here as well.
Bye, everybody.